I come from a divorced family that I have had to struggle adapting to. By transitioning between two diverse environments every other week, my life of living in a divorced family all the time has been a blessing in disguise. It has allowed me to understand other people who live in a divorced home and has provided me with a passion to work in a field where I am able to help others no matter the issue.
For my 4 years of attending Baldwin Park High School, I would have to say that my favorite class was medical pathologies. At first, I thought we would just be doing handouts most of the time because this is what I heard went on in that class. However, last year, we got a new teacher named Mrs. Guerrero who used to prepare adults to work in the medical field. So I actually got to learn hands-on practices and got an insight of what goes on inside different careers in the medical field. This class allowed me to see if I wanted to further pursue a career in the medical field. Imagine being locked up in a four-walled room, left with nothing but your thoughts for the full 24 hours a day, patiently waiting there in the hopes that you will escape the horrors of the four-walled cell you now call home. Solitary confinement was made with the intention of being used as a way to improve prison conditions. However, since the 20th century, the use of confinement has been abused and has had a huge impact on a person's health. Many people felt that by isolating dangerous people from the rest of the prisoners, it would ensure safety in prisons. However, issues arise when you are being left in a featureless cell for more than 3 days. While being isolated by yourself was meant to ensure prison safety, it can lead to the risk of mental health disorders, affect a person's physical health, and most importantly, it violates basic human rights. For these reasons, I feel that solitary confinement should be removed from the prison system unless it is the last resort. Due to the lack of interaction that prisoners in solitary confinement are exposed to, the development of mental disorders is very likely to occur. Isolation can cause schizophrenia, as well as anxiety, panic attacks, insomnia, paranoia, aggression, and depression. Robert T. Mueller, a doctor, has discussed the many horrendous effects that are caused by the lack of social interactions for long periods of time, by stating that subjecting an individual for more than 10 days of involuntary segregation would result in a distinct set of emotional, cognitive, social, and physical pathologies. Segregating prisoners who are in solitary confinement are affected greatly because not only do they develop mental health disorders, but they also aren't able to get treatment for their mental health issues. Any human being needs human interaction with others in order to function properly, and by not only allowing prisoners to do so, mental health disorders have increased at elevated rates. Furthermore, being trapped in the hole, stripped away from social interactions, left with only you and your thoughts for the full 20 hours a day, violates the basic human rights that we should all have. In an article written by Alexander A. Reinhardt, he argues that solitary confinement goes against one of the amendments in the Bill of Rights, discussing that the practices of solitary confinement go against the Eighth Amendment, which protect people against cruel and unusual punishment with appalling regularity. Violations of basic human rights in solitary confinement has been a leading cause of the high rates of hallucinations and suicide that take place within the cells. ACLU claims that it is not unusual to find mentally ill prisoners in solitary confinement who swallow razors and other objects, smash their head into walls, compulsively cut their flesh, try to hang themselves, and otherwise attempt to harm or kill themselves. On the other hand, correctional staff and surgeons believe that locking a human being behind steel doors without recreational privileges, contact visits, or communication time would reform an inmate's character. This is referred to as a punishment of removal. When they are faced with the possibility of a loss of something that was previously granted to them, they compare the situation that they are in to the situation that they could face, and with that comparison in mind, they choose to not act accordingly. Alternatively, it has been shown that prisoners held in solitary confinement were 6.9 times as likely to harm themselves, even after controlling for variables such as lengths of stay, race, and serious mental illness. The way surgeons and staff approached how it is being used is actually harming the inmates more than improving their character. Being locked up behind cells for extended periods of time with nothing but yourself and your conscience, you are damaging a person's health for the worse. which can lead to self-harm and mental illness. Common methods of self-harm ranged from relatively minor acts such as cutting the skin with plastic utensils to causing bleeding to potential fatal acts such as ingesting toxins or trying something around their necks. Other acts include banging their heads against the wall and setting the cells on fire. Although the use of isolation seems like a good solution for preventing harm to other inmates, maintaining prison safety, and reforming a prison's character, in reality, we are leading many inmates to harm themselves and lead to suicide. My call to action to put a stop to the abuse of solitary confinement would be to create a way to raise awareness to politicians and allow them to view the horrific consequences that are put on victims of solitary confinement, such as by protesting or creating an online campaign. The denial of social engagement with others leads to prisoners not knowing how to be members of society when they are released from prison. If we continue to allow the use of solitary confinement, many people will start to lose their social skills and won't want to be around others because they haven't been exposed to social engagement, but rather just a small 60 by 80 foot cell alone. Baking has always had a place in my heart. Since I was little, I always looked forward to visits from my grandma. She is the original baker in the family and now has someone to pass the secret recipes down to future generations. I love the art of baking, and the many skills that can be learned from baking, such as organization, attention to detail, creativity, coordination, and patience. About 2 years ago, I started my at-home baking business and hope to continue to expand my business and officially open a bakery to have as a side of while in college. After high school, I plan on attending Penn State and working towards receiving a bachelor's degree in biochemistry, and I'm very excited because I get to travel to a state where I have never been to and get to spend the next 4 years in a city where it snows, being that I love the snow. The way I see it, if you want the rainbow, you gotta put up with the rain.